know me as a Nintendo guy. I mean, I have made a few videos about Nintendo games after all, but did you know I was once a Sony kid? That's right, before I got the GameCube and fell in love with all things Nintendo, my PlayStations kept me company, with the PS2 being my go-to console for my childhood. I played a decent amount of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Maybe those games will get their own video eventually. But my favorite trilogy on the PlayStation was of a certain thieving raccoon, Sly Cooper. Yes, the games where you play as Sly and or his friends and their thieving adventures holds a special place in my heart. I fell in love with the series as a whole after renting the second game at a video store. It was then that I vowed I played the rest of the games at some point. And guess what? I did, and I love them. And you know what? I think it's time we talk about one of them today. But two does not come before one. So we're gonna start with the first game. How do I feel about the first Sly Cooper? I mean, it's alright. Better than this game. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is the first entry in the Sly Cooper franchise, where Sly and his friends have to find the torn pages of the Thievius Raccoonus by stealing them from other thieves in order to learn about his ancestry. It's an interesting platformer from the PS2 era with the focus on being a thief. It was a decent success, selling 400,000 copies in its first year. But looking back at it now, it's definitely not perfect. I remember the whiplash of going from the second game to the first. The quality and tone was not what I was expecting. But that was when I was a kid. Things changed. I've become a much better video game player, and I want to try it again. Besides, it's gotta be better than Sly 4. Does this game steal your heart, or should it be locked in the slammer for stealing your time? Let's find out. The game literally starts with a heist. There's no menu screen or anything. You open the game and it takes you right into the gameplay. That's actually kind of cool. Not every game just has you jump right in, but here we are, on a rooftop sneaking into a police station in Paris. You learn about Sly and how nimble he is, being able to jump on and climb anything that has a blue aura around it, dodging lasers, sneaking on walls, and of course, whacking things with his cane. We also learn about Sly's literal partners in crime. First off, there's Bentley, the brains of the operation. We usually see him in your binocucom. Say that 3 times fast. The two-way communicator you use to get the lowdown of the level. They'll let you know about new moves, or they'll set up some exposition. Next, there's Murray. He's the comic relief of the group, I guess, being the getaway driver despite being a burden. I'm not even being mean. Sly calls him that exactly.
Ed Murray, part-time driver and full-time burden.
I am sworn to carry your burden.
No! Dang, Sly is ruthless. You steal the info about your ancestry from a vault, and we're now introduced to Inspector Carmelita Fox, the cop who has been chasing Sly for God knows how long. He also has the hots for her. Look at how she whips up that shock pistol. There's this whole chase scene where you avoid her shock blasts while going down guardrails and running through cars and... Oh, it's one of those games. Sly 1 is a cartoon platformer, similar to many PS1 era titles, in that our protagonist is more fragile than the Fabergé egg he's stealing. One hit, and you're dead. I gotta love arcade-style gameplay. Wait, no I don't. It isn't long until we reach the getaway van, and a cool cutscene plays out, with this neat film noir-style narration by Sly, as he describes the plot of the game. And now, one of my favorite moments with Sly Cooper. The thing that got me hooked to the series, even with the first one. The story. He talks about how he was born from a long line of master thieves, going back several generations. On the night he was supposed to inherit the book, his family was murdered by the Fiendish Five, a band of 5 master criminals. They tore apart the Trenchius Rababagoogus book and scattered the pages across the world. Sly was dumped in an orphanage, where he met Bentley and Murray, later becoming the Cooper Gang. And here we are now. The story makes logical sense by setting up what we learned so far, and the presentation is fantastic, with colorful artwork harboring a darker tone. Plus, Kevin Miller's voice acting as Sly is just a chef's kiss in acting. It really nails down the tone they were going for, and I think it's really performed well. And so begins our adventure, traveling to various locations around the world, taking on the Fiendish Five one by one, all while recovering our rightful inheritance. The cutscenes return to start off each level too. These are mostly memorable snippets that dive into the origins of whatever Fiendish Five will be focusing on for the level. There's Sir Raleigh, a frog-turned-pirate. Mugshot, a weakling bulldog turned macho after watching gangster movies. Ah, yes, the dog father was my favorite too. Miss Ruby, a voodoo priestess who made friends with the dead after being shunned by everyone. The Panda King, a fireworks technician turned criminal after being snubbed by nobles. And finally, a mysterious owl, working from the shadows that has some history with the Cooper clan. Again, these cutscenes are great, but the writing really shines through too. Not only are some of these lines hilarious, but you can kind of see how the criminals got from point A to point B, whether they were misunderstood, an outcast, or just because being a pirate is fun. You are a pirate! Alright, let's get to the gameplay. It's a platformer, but not just any platformer. It's a platformer that makes you want to steal a tag off a mattress. For the majority of the game, you play as Sly, running, jumping, climbing, pressing the circle buttoning on things to navigate, with Bentley usually giving you a rundown of how things work. They communicate through their binocucom in these little cutscenes. It took me until writing this script in the year 2025 to realize what this was a reference to. The locations are interesting, from the inside of a sunken ship, to a casino, a creepy swamp filled with undead, a mountain city covered in snow, and finally a volcano. This can lead to a lot of different looking levels that are super fun to explore, even if they are linear. This does a lot of the things you'd expect from a platformer like this, such as climbing things, jumping across gaps, sneaking up on guards before you smack them with your cane. You also can collect clue bottles that make satisfying sounds when you do so. Ah, the sound of thievery. And broken glass. Each world has an introductory level of sorts, where you find a key that gets you into the hub area of that world. Once in the hub, you have access to a series of levels for you to attempt in any area you please. I will say, for a platformer heavily inspired by Crash and other PlayStation mascots, the ability to choose where you want to go in any order you want is nice. I like to get the more thieving levels done first, and then deal with the annoying ones at the end, but let's not talk about those yet. This is where, honestly, the Sly levels are their best in the game. Sneaking around, avoiding searchlights, bypassing guards, doing all the sneaky things that make you feel like a thief. There's a level where you hide and walk around in a barrel to avoid being a living dartboard. Another homage to Metal Gear. There are times where you swing from platform to platform. This game has level design that can make you feel like you're an acrobatic thieving menace, especially with avoiding those searchlights, which can get pretty intense. You get noticed by the searchlights and they go from yellow to red. The music gets more intense, and then if you're in the spotlights again... Anybody in the mood for barbecuous rack steakus? A majority of these levels are stealthy, and you can tell for these sections they wanted you to feel like a thief. And most of the time, you do, especially when pulling off the special moves. As you unlock more of the game, you acquire some impressive moves from the Phineas and Ferbicus. Moves like spiral jump, rail walking, rail sliding, and even the ability to turn invisible. Wow, I thought Sly was a raccoon, not a chameleon. A lot of times you feel really cool as a thief. Except when you don't, and you feel like Crash Bandicoot in criminal attire. Sometimes it feels like you're less of a thief and more like you're a raccoon dressed like one. Like, a part of me wishes you could avoid guards entirely, but a lot of times they stare off into nothing just like regular platforming enemies in your way and needing to be dealt with. Sitting there, waiting for you. Waiting to die. I kind of wish we could avoid them altogether, but alas. If I haven't talked about it yet, another element that really lends to the stealth vibe for this game is the music. The scores fit the scenes perfectly, as they reflect sneaking around the environment, like there's danger around every corner, and you're not welcome here. But that isn't going to stop you from breaking in. A lot of these levels have different challenges and objectives, most of them having you complete the level and get the key at the end. Sometimes there's a variable, usually getting chased by Carmelita, and other times you'll have to do other things that don't involve Sly sneaking around. If I'm being completely honest, the levels where you don't play as Sly and you aren't sneaking around or being stealthy, they're either frustrating, infuriating, or boring. Some of these feature Sly using vehicles or turrets of some kind, like this machine gun hovercraft, or where he's in a submarine trying to collect treasure and shooting crabs. Another where you have to collect chickens and avoid roosters with bombs. I feel like there's an innuendo here, but it would probably blow up in my face. There's a series of levels where you have to defend Murray with turrets as he walks through the level. These are honestly a bit annoying and repetitive, as you gotta get ready for an enemy that comes after the pink hippo, who can't defend himself for some reason. I thought hippos were supposed to be scary. Way to go, Murray! You really let your species down. It's alright, you'll be better in Sly 2. These levels feel like so much filler. Like I'm just wasting my time before getting back to the story that matters. Not to mention, some of them have time limits to get the task done. As if I wasn't already annoyed, now I gotta beat a timer? It feels like they had some cool thieving levels and ran out of ideas, and just came up with minigame modes to pad out the runtime. And a lot of them were hard. That chicken segment I mentioned, I struggled. That submarine minigame with those crabs stealing treasures, I got so many game overs. Damn you, crabs! The Murray turret sections weren't that bad, actually. They gave me a lot more trouble when I was a kid. But my absolute least favorite challenges for this game are Murray's driving sections. These are races where you have to beat other vehicles to the finish line. Sounds easy enough, right? Especially since there's only 2 levels like it in the entire game. But oddly enough, the first one is the hardest. I swear it took me 20 minutes to beat it, and I had a really hard time with it. Why is this so difficult, and why is it so hard to control a car? Murray, why is it so hard to drive fast? I don't understand. You are the burdenest of burdens. Carry them all. It's okay, Murray. You could be worse. You could be Bentley. I don't know what it is about Sly 1, but Bentley just seems like a real jerk in this one. Yes, he's the know-it-all nerd that guides Sly through the levels, pretty much Otacon if he was a turtle. But there were some times his dialogue just made me groan. There doesn't seem to be a genuine friendship here. And I don't know, that really bugs me. Okay, yeah, you may not know if you haven't played them, but a lot of the complaints I have with this game were fixed in the second and third games. I probably shouldn't judge this game too harshly for these things. I get it, but even as a gameplay mechanic, Bentley is an exposition machine, and that's it. Yes, Murray is kind of useless too, but he's in the field. He has segments. What does Bentley have gameplay-wise? One level near the end where he does hacking. That's it. Speaking of the end, once you get all 7 keys for a world, it's time to face off against that region's Fiendish 5 boss. For all the complaints I have for Sly's supporting cast, I have to give props to the developers for this game's villains. They have fantastic designs, wonderful voice acting. Fun fact, did you know literally one guy did all the male voices for the Fiendish 5? And probably the most important thing, memorable boss battles. Each has specific attack patterns, cool music, and they are fun bosses for sure. Some even argue that they are the best bosses in the series, which, yeah, I can kind of get that. Especially the final boss, which really does raise things up to 11. But I honestly have a strange problem with the final area. The final area doesn't have you doing much sneaking. You know, the main appeal of this game, exploring around areas and stealing things. Out of the 7 sections, only 2 of them count as sneaky, and one of them, you are just climbing to the top of a volcano before the lava gets you. It feels a bit rushed, like they just recycled a bunch of the minigames from previous levels instead of making them more unique. And the big problem is, the non-thief minigames feel half-baked. It feels like they got out of focus and tried to cram too many things into what had the potential to be such a good thing. If they dedicated more time to the stealth elements, I think we could have had a really unique and interesting platformer. As it stands now, the level designs become a bit cluttered as the game attempts to find its identity. Combine that with the fact you die very easily, and it leaves me pretty annoyed. Yes, the one and done hit is a mechanic I find tiring and archaic. I wish this game had more of a life bar, but I suppose it adds to the challenge in a way. It adds to the risk factor. You have to be stealthy or you die. That doesn't mean I have to like it. You also do get some lucky horseshoes that give you an extra hit, but they're rarely in the levels. I swear, I can only find a couple in the beginning of the game, and maybe I'll get one if I'm dying a lot. Almost like the game pities me. You are able to make things easier with the help of your upgrades, which thankfully you can get very stealthily with the help of those clue bottles. The clue bottles are really important to get in this game, and in my opinion, are more than worth the time it takes searching for them. They aren't too hard to find, with a lot of them being just off the beaten path. That said, others are so well hidden that I needed a guide to find them. But most levels have a vault, and once you get the bottles, you can unlock some things. A majority of those things are pages from the Thievius Raccoonus, where you learn a move like diving, rolling, and even a slow motion move. You can even get better versions of moves in the game you learn from the story. For example, that invisible move normally doesn't let you move, but with an upgrade from the thriving Rambuncticus, you can move while invisible. Very slowly. Some moves make hazards easier. For example, Sly can't swim, so he drowns, or he falls off a cliff, which of course, kill him. But again, thanks to Thievius Raccoonus, you can get an upgrade when you can fall in water and not take damage, or fall off cliffs without dying. It does make the game a lot easier, and it helps you feel like you're making progress and possibly becoming more skilled at what you do. I kind of like it a lot, and it helps with the overall goal of making you feel like a master thief. So after playing Sly Cooper and the receding hairlinus, what do I have to say about it after all these years? Even years later, it's a decent game and a decent platformer. But it could have been so much better. The things that are good are really good. The stealth, the cutscenes, the story, the thief moves of climbing, hanging, and just sneaking around. All of it is so iconic to the series, and it really immerses you in the setting and makes you feel like you're doing something awesome. However, in between all that greatness, there's a lot of tedious busy work and unsatisfying difficulty spikes that soured my overall experience. It's a good first entry for the series, and while it's not the worst game in the world by a long shot, it has a lot of issues that were thankfully fixed in later installments. Still, the heart of the game is still clear as day. They made a game with a fantastic narrative and laid down the stepping stones to make you feel like you're pulling off a heist. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is a PlayStation platform that's sure to steal your heart. Well, for better or worse, that's one Sly game down. While this one was alright, I'm looking forward to covering Sly 2 and 3, which you'll hopefully see later this year. Trust me, the sequels blow the original out of the water. But that's for another time. Would you get out of here? Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and check out my other videos too. Special thanks to all the people who helped me out with this video. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Also, an extra special thanks to my Patreon patrons, including Mantelferox and Savacom. If you'd like to join the Patreon, the link is in the description below, along with my Twitch, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good night.
You know that Thievius Raccoonus